Before we dive into today's episode, I want to talk to you about something incredibly close to my heart, and that's maternal health. I've spoken a lot about my own experiences on this podcast, especially related to mental health and how important it is to seek help, whether through therapy or medicine. But we all know that's easier said than done. That's where Mere comes in, a virtual maternal health care clinic serving women from preconception through menopause. Mere was founded by a mom, just like you or me, who struggled to find the support she needed during her own maternal health journey and wanted to create a better experience for other women. Mere brings together therapists, women's health providers, and pelvic floor specialists who understand the unique challenges women face throughout motherhood. Mere believes women deserve care that looks at the whole picture, not just one symptom or one appointment at a time. Book a free 15-minute phone call today and learn more at mere-foreverychapter.com. That's mere, M-E-R-E -foreverychapter.com. Welcome to the Arrivals Podcast. I'm your host, Merelise Wilson, and today I have the amazing, magical, incredible Devyn Goss here with me. Hi, Devyn.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to talk with you today. We have a lot of babies to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
6. So everybody, buckle up. We've got a good one for you.
It sounds so crazy when you say 6, but it's like, I feel like I'm just like, yeah, that's 6, whatever.
That's insane. That's really, really crazy. What's the age range?
Sure, yeah. My oldest is going to be 14 this year, and my
Okay.
baby is 2. So I have ages in between. So I go from almost 14 down to 2.
That's so cool. And it's not technically a motherhood podcast, but I'm so curious about what it's like to have that large of an age gap with siblings. I bet it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, and I have a unique experience anyway, because my 3
Yeah.
older kiddos are severely autistic.
hmm
But I am 11, almost 12 years older than my youngest sibling. And so I already kind of
hmm
had that experience because my middle brother and I are only a year apart. And so
Yeah.
I knew that what an incredible experience it is to have siblings like all across the age spans. So like
hmm
some of my kids are 19 months apart. Some of my kids are 5 years apart. Some of my kids are
Yeah.
teenagers to babies. Like I think it's such a cool way of like immersing them with each other in like these different experiences of life, but also there's challenges. So like I won't act like that's not a thing. Like my oldest is like
Right.
in his like teenage years. So he's like, I love all you guys, but also like I'm going to lock myself in the room.
Different kind of hard.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I'm doing the math in my head because I think we're around the same age. So
Mhm.
did you know that you wanted to have babies pretty young? Were you pretty young when you had your first?
Yeah. So I'll just kind of jump in. So
Yeah, jump in.
I got married at 19.
Oh,
My
wow.
husband and I have known each other since we were kids. Our moms worked together. And I
Oh,
like had a crush on him for years and we just never like found each other at the right time. And then we started dating and it was just like, okay, we're together now. Like, so we just got married. And then
oh.
I had planned to wait 5 years to have kids because I had some travel I wanted to do and some career stuff. And sorry, audience, you're about to hear something that might make some of you guys like, oh no. I actually got pregnant with my oldest son on the Depo Provera shot. Um, and so, yeah,
Tell
I
me more
was
about that.
20.
Is that a birth
Yeah,
control shot?
it is.
Oh.
Yep. So I had been on it for a couple years and it's kind of like a cyclical shot where it's like you get it and it lasts for a certain amount of time, and then you get it again.
hmm
And so I was coming up on the end of that cycle, but I had been on it for so long. I was like, that's fine. Like I wasn't tracking my cycle or anything back then because everything was regular. Everything was like clockwork. I was like a
Right.
baby. And so when I did find out I was pregnant, I was almost 9 weeks because I was like, had no idea. And I would say within 5 minutes of finding out I was pregnant, I got violently ill until I was like 26 weeks pregnant. It was horrible.
Mm.
I
Ugh.
always butcher this. It's hyperemesis.
Hyperemesis.
Thank you, hyperemesis. I was like, I always butcher
Yeah.
this, which is terrible because I'm a doula. I should know this. But I had that and I was getting like IV fluids. Like it was brutal. Like I was so sick. And so I always knew when I was a kid, I used to say I wanted like 10 kids. Like I was like, I want so many kids. I love kids. My youngest sibling is almost 12 years younger. So I helped my parents a lot with him.
Mm.
He's actually only like 8 years older than my oldest son. And
Wow.
yeah, I know. So,
That's fun. I bet that's gotta be kind of fun for them.
it was cool. I mean,
Yeah.
my oldest is autistic. So it was definitely a
Mhm.
unique experience because I think if he wasn't, they would have been a lot closer, but it was cool for them to kind of like, they've kind of grown up together, him and my second son, because my second
Yeah.
son's 12. So yeah.
Yeah.
So I did really want children, but I just wasn't planning on them that soon. But so then I was like, all right,
Yeah.
we're just gonna buckle in. This is what it is. And I will say, I'm a practicing medium and I'm a witch and I have been forever. And so my oldest son actually came to me in a dream about 2 years before I got pregnant with him. And I knew it was my son. I didn't know who I
Wow.
was marrying. I didn't know anything. He was sitting in a jack-o'-lantern. He was a baby sitting in a jack-o'-lantern, blonde-haired baby. And in my mind, I was like, oh, my son is going to be like conceived around Halloween or born around Halloween. And he was conceived the week after Halloween. And he is a spooky
Mm.
dude. He loves witchcraft. He loves all of my occult stuff. Like he is so into it.
I love it.
um,
I'm like picturing like a little, do you remember like those little I feel like calendars of like babies sitting in like cute things, you know what I mean? Like I'm picturing like this like little baby sitting in like a jack-o'-lantern, like a little pose. I'm sure it was like more magical and like more spiritual than that, but
it
that's
was
what comes
so
to
cute.
mind.
I do. I just remember it. I just remember it very. And so when I did find out I was pregnant with him, I knew immediately I was having a boy. I was like, my husband was like,
Mm.
I don't know. And I was like, nope, no questions. I will like die on this hill. I'm having a boy, to the point where when I went to the ultrasound was like, what are you thinking? And I was like, I'm not thinking, I'm having a boy. And she was like, we'll see. And then within like 2 seconds, she was like, mom's right. So it was funny. But yeah, so that was like initiation into like the birth,
Mhm.
pregnancy world. And I love my mother, my grandmothers, amazing, amazing people. However, none of them talked about birth, talked about pregnancy. Like, I feel like when you're being raised, especially by women who are not taught themselves or who are not embracing of these things themselves, it's like nobody talks to you about your vagina. Nobody talks to you about
Mhm.
your cycle. Nobody talks to you about what the heck happens in the body at each point of the month. I track my cycle with the moon, how important that is for women. Nobody tells you any of this stuff. You're not even supposed to like touch it. It's like, don't touch it, don't look
Yeah.
at it. Um,
Right.
Especially in the South. And I feel bad saying that, but it is true.
Hmm.
And so I read Women Who Run with the Wolves when I was a teenager, and it just like ripped my brain apart. Like I was like, we can do things differently. Like this is
I
crazy.
don't know that one. I got to add that to my
Oh,
list. I don't know that one.
it's incredible. It basically is talking about the wild woman architect and how so many of us are
Mm.
born as wild women, but it's suppressed. And how these
Mm.
urges like come out later in life and how they turn into things like autoimmune disease. Um,
Mm.
yeah, so it's fascinating. So anyway, I read
Cool.
that when I was a teenager. And so I remember when I was pregnant with my oldest son, I was like really curious about like home birth and unmedicated birth and not vaccinating, like all these like things that everybody that I knew was like, that's hippie or that's uneducated or
Right.
And I was the only person I knew having a child because I was not even 20 years old. So
Yeah.
nobody around me was even thinking about children at that point. And I remember really using my abilities and connecting with my son a lot throughout the pregnancy and just being like,
Mm.
what do you want? How do you feel aligned? And when I did finally end up going into labor, I remember telling my doctor like that I thought I was in labor. I remember telling my doctor I thought I was having an elephant. And like just having all of these people around me be like, you're young. You don't know what you're talking about. This baby's probably 6 pounds. You're not in labor yet. And
Yeah.
then they were like, oh, you're in labor. Go to the hospital. And I'm just going to give a reference here. My husband is 6'6". Okay. It's not crazy that I would have a humongous baby. It's not crazy.
No, not at
But
all.
I'm 5'4". Like I'm not a big person. I'm a normal sized person.
Hmm.
So when I did have my son, he was 10 pounds, 22 and a half inches. First
Wow.
baby
That's
out
a
the
lot of
gate.
baby.
And I know. And this doctor was like, where were you hiding this baby? And I'm like, you're not listening to the woman, to the intuition, to the person who is carrying the child. Like,
Yeah.
ugh. So anyway,
So
so
you were at like more of a traditional OB practice for this
yes.
first pregnancy? Okay.
Yeah. So I'll talk about that.
Yeah.
So because I was so sick, I was nervous to not be seen by like medical care. And
Yeah.
my mom is one of those people who she's very supportive. When you are solid about something and you're like, you're not pushing me, I'm not budging. She's like, great, 100% supporting you. If you
Hmm.
are like a little on the fence, she will lean you towards the safer option. And my mom was sort of my confidant during this experience because I was so young. And so I remember my mom really pushing me to do like typical OB care.
Hmm.
So I did. And my first doctor, I was not aligned with. I was not happy. And so I ended up switching at like 25 weeks, which was like unheard of at the time.
Yeah.
And so I ended up finding this other OB who I vibed with pretty well, which was funny because he was an elderly white man. And you're thinking, I mean, he literally looked like Albert Einstein. Like I was like,
I love it.
I know. I was like, sir, who are you? And I was like, you are going to look at my vagina. Like, and he's just like, we're not going to make this weird. Look at the birds I took pictures of. I'm a bird watcher. um, so anyway, but he just was very knowledgeable and he did know a lot about like older school practices that I was more
Hmm.
aligned with. So I did end up having my son naturally at the hospital. But my labor process was brutal because I was not educated on things like Pitocin. And so
Mm.
when my labor was taking quite a long time and stalling because it was my first baby and because he was
Hmm.
huge, I wasn't going fast enough for the hospital. The hospital was like,
Hmm.
you've been here 7 hours and you haven't progressed. You need Pitocin. So, of course, at this point in my life, I have no idea this is not standard procedure. I have no idea that I can say no.
Hmm.
So I'm like, great, let's do it. It changed my labor and birth experience astronomically because the
Yeah.
Pitocin made my contractions so fast and so intense before my son was ready to move at that capacity. And
Hmm.
he was having distress in the birth canal. When he came out, he ended up having to go to the NICU for several hours because of breathing struggles.
Hmm.
And I was so distraught just because I felt like there was so much interference that I even remember at one point telling a nurse, like, she was like, you need to push. I was like, I am pushing. She's like, you're not pushing the right way. And this was a
Mm.
woman. And I'm like,
Hmm.
as birthing women, like we need women around us who are rooting for us, who are holding us
Yeah.
in our transition. This is a spiritual
Hmm.
experience, whether you're a spiritual being or not.
Yeah.
The closest that we come
Right.
to death is from maiden to mother
Right.
and mother to mother, you know?
Yes. Yes.
And not being in a space where you feel safe, held, listened to, cared for, it really delays the birth process because that
Hmm.
your body doesn't feel safe to birth the baby.
Right.
So that was my first experience. So after that, I was like, never again. Like if I have more children, I'm having a completely different experience. And
Yeah.
I felt like my son chose the way he wanted to come in because it opened me up to the world of birth and knowledge
Mm.
around birth and advocacy
Mm.
around birth, because it really made me like, no, this isn't happening again. Um,
Yeah.
so cut to, I'm not planning on having kids again for several years. And I have a surprise baby. I get pregnant on
Yep.
accident. And I always feel bad saying this because I know there are people listening who have had fertility struggles. And I just want to hold space for that because I work
Mm.
with so many clients who have fertility struggles, who have been trying for children for years. And I will talk about this. I was a surrogate myself. And so I am very respectful and honoring of those things. And I do understand how incredibly upsetting and frustrating it is to hear someone say, I got pregnant on accident. So I just want to hold
Yeah.
space for that because I know how hard that is through the lens of others. I haven't experienced it
Mm.
myself. Um,
Hmm.
so
Thank you for
I know
that.
that can be incredible. Yeah, I know that can be incredibly frustrating to hear. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah.
Um, so my son, my second son, fooled me. He was like, I'm a girl. I was like, oh, great. And was like, I had no sickness, completely different pregnancy, thought that something was wrong because I was like,
Mm.
what's happening? Like, is the baby okay? And that is just in line with his personality. Like, he was born on Houdini's birthday. I was like, you're a
That's
trickster
so
spirit.
funny.
Yeah.
I love
Um,
that. That's so cool.
yeah. He's also very balanced in his feminine and masculine. So, like,
Mm.
I've also done a lot of past life work around my children. He and I have had a past life together in Egypt where he was a woman.
Mm.
So I
Mm.
was picking up some of that as well, some of that residual soul energy. So with my second, I had an epidural birth. I had a breezy 4.5 hour labor delivery, like waited until I went into labor, water broke, went to the hospital. I wasn't even going to get the epidural. And then I was like, you know what? I'm getting it. I want to relax.
Mm.
And I didn't even need it. I was in that headspace of like, I want to be in control of this. And I know that if
Mhm.
I say yes to this and I am in the headspace of I'm relaxed, I'm calm, I'm present, that this is going to honor that. Well, I was wrong because I ended up having a reaction to the epidural. My blood pressure tanked
Mm.
and
Mhm.
I just started vomiting everywhere, like so
Mm.
sick. And I will tell you, I know there's a lot of people who have sensitivity to drugs, certain things. What a lot of people don't realize, and I'm saying this as the spiritual person, not the birthing person talking, what a lot of people don't
Mhm.
realize is people who are extremely sensitive spiritually are extremely affected by things like medicine and plant allies. And so, if we're
Mm.
not working in tandem with those things and explaining what our body needs from them, why they're coming into our body, all these different things, our body a lot of time will expel them or react negatively to them. And so, at the time, I'm 22. I'm not really aware that I need to communicate with medication. I'm like, yeah, I've always had weird
Mhm.
reactions to stuff, but didn't really understand that's what it was. But now, many years later on my journey, I do know that. So I always like to tell my clients that when I'm working with them as a doula or a practitioner through spirit,
Mhm.
because it's something that I like people to take into consideration if they're opening up on their spiritual journey. You're going to be more impacted by things like medication after the
Mm.
fact, just so
Interesting.
everyone knows.
So, okay. Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, it makes sense. And I'm
Yeah.
curious. So I know you said like your son's birth was less than ideal, and that kind of like
Hmm.
it broke you open in so many ways. First time mom, but also like introduced you to this birth world. And
Hmm.
and then I was kind of surprised, honestly, to hear you say that you decided to
Yep.
have your second son in a hospital. So I'm
Yep.
curious, like, what was the in between, your first and your second?
Sure.
Like, how did you decide what to pursue, or like if you did want to change anything, what did you like want to try to change for your second birth experience that ultimately led to you
Yeah.
giving birth again in a hospital?
So I spent the first like trimester and a half like studying home birth experiences and birthing centers. Mind you, at the time, this is 12, 13 years ago, there wasn't a lot of options where I was in Georgia.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hate to say this, Southerners, don't get mad at me. I'm a Southern girly. But the South is really behind when it comes to medical stuff. It's really delayed in the birth world. It's got the worst birth mortality rates in birth for birthing
Yes.
mothers and children, like all of these things. And this is the South as a whole. This isn't just like one state.
Right.
And
well,
so
Georgia in particular has a higher maternal mortality rate than the national average, which is heartbreaking, but true.
It's very heartbreaking. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons that I did go this route is because once again, I was very young and my older two kids are only 19 months apart. So I was still sort of in postpartum when I found out I was pregnant again. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like I haven't even had time to process my first birth. I'm pregnant again. And so the only thing I kept getting from my son during that pregnancy was, you need to feel safe. You need to feel safe. That was his message throughout the entire pregnancy. He didn't have a specific birth he wanted to experience. It was very much like, I'm going to come in very easily. You just need to feel safe. Because I did end up having a placental retention after his delivery and hemorrhaging. And so it was actually a good thing I was in the hospital, because it's not that you cannot experience something like that in a home birth and be safe, especially if you have a skilled home birth practitioner who knows how to stop the bleeding, get you safely to a hospital. But at the time, there wasn't you couldn't just go online and look up skilled home birth midwife who knows how to do XYZ. Like, we didn't have that kind of access yet on our phones. You know, there was just not as, and I'm sure these people existed, but it was not easy to find them. And so my husband during the pregnancy as well was like, this was many years ago. And so he was just like, why do you want to birth outside of the hospital? Like, that's weird. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, nobody does that. And I'm like, people do it. And he's like, yeah, crazy hippies who live on buses, like in that book you read. And so he was talking about Ina Gaskin. And
I was going to say, was he talking about the farm?
Yeah. Midwifery. And I'm like, no, this is a dream. This is a dream. And he's like, Devyn, this isn't reality.
That sounds exactly like my husband and I had almost an identical conversation.
I think it's the Southerners. Like, I think it's Southern men. Like, it's like my husband is so different now because he's lived with me for 16 years. I'm a practicing witch. He's seen all of these magical things. He's witnessed me with clients. So he knows all this stuff exists. And he's also witnessed me have babies at home. And so he's like, you're a powerhouse. It's incredible. But at the time, he's like 25, 26 years old. And he's like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, just go to the hospital, you know?
That's all they know. Yeah.
Exactly. And his mom and his sister, he had seen his niece be born. He was there with his sister. And when she was born, she wasn't breathing. The umbilical cord was wrapped around her neck multiple times. And she's a few years older than our older two kids. And so he had a little bit of birth trauma because he saw that. And so he was like, what would happen if that happened with our baby and we're at home? And I want to hold space for that too, because I feel like there's a lot of women who want to birth at home and their husbands are like terrified. And that's a real fear to have. And I do appreciate that. But I also feel like there's so much education now. I trained with the Born Free method. They have like a dad's men's group. They have a training program for partners together. Like, it is incredible.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
That's why I went that route, was just because between my son being like, I just want you to feel safe, the pressure of like the people around me, and me just not really having like the research that I was doing, not coming up finding very many other options. And so I did go that route. And I was like, man, I'm never going to have this dream birth, because my husband was like, done, no more kids. And I was like crushed, because I'm like, I want like 17 children. What are you talking about? And he's like, you're absolutely insane. Done. So my older two children were diagnosed with autism and nonverbal speech delays, sensory issues, ADHD, et cetera, et cetera. So we waited 5 years
Mm.
before we had another child.
Mm-hmm.
I felt my third son knocking at the door for many years. He was like, I'm ready to
Yeah.
come in and join this crew. And I would start having the conversation with my husband, and he's like, absolutely not. You're crazy. And
Yeah.
I was just like, come on, come on, come on. Like, this baby's here. Oh my gosh, I know it. And he's just like, hard no. And years of this. And so
Yeah.
finally we were coming up on like the 4-year mark. And I looked at him and I said, I desperately want to have this other child. Like, I know our family is not complete. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it'll ever feel complete for me, but I know it's not complete. And so
Yeah.
he finally was like, okay. And I was pregnant the first try of this child.
Wow.
Like, first time
He was
trying
ready
for
to
this
come in.
kid. He was
Yeah.
like on my forehead for like 3 years. Like, are you going to have me?
Like, hello, I'm
Yeah.
waiting.
And he's an Aquarius. He is like, I call him an alien child because he is so spiritually in tune, but he is so weird.
I love it. I love it.
And I will say his birth reflected that.
Mm.
I, for his entire pregnancy, I prepped for home birth. So I found a home birth midwife. I did all the research. I was so excited. I had done a lot of my own like training on advocacy, and I was going to an OBGYN like
Mm-hmm.
once every, I don't know, 2 months just to do like check-ins because it made my husband feel better.
Yeah.
But I was also working with this midwife on the side, and I was like, this is it. I'm going to have the water birth. I'm going to have the dream. I'm so excited. And
Yeah.
I get to my 36-week appointment, and my OB's like, this baby is breech. And
Mm.
I'm like, so what? And she's like, because I forgot I left this detail out. My second son was breech, but he flipped at 37 weeks.
Oh, wow. Okay. Did you
Yeah,
do
he
anything to
just
like encourage
flipped.
him to flip? He just flipped on
No,
his own?
and that's his personality. He's like, I do what I
Yeah.
want when I want.
Houdini. It's the Houdini baby,
Literally.
right? Yeah.
Yes, that's
Oh
my
my
second.
gosh.
So my
Oh my
third,
gosh. Okay.
he was breech, and I started really meditating and sitting with him. And I was like,
Mm.
what are you trying to communicate with me? Because I am 100% open to trying to deliver you naturally breech, but I'm also aware that you're going to be a very big baby. And I want to hold space for like, what journey do you want? Like, what is your
Mm.
expression? Like, what is the birthday coming through? Like, all these things. And he kept showing me that he was not going to flip. He's like, it doesn't matter what
Mm.
you do. It doesn't matter how many handstands you do, what chiropractor you go to. Like, I'm not flipping. Like, this is the
Yeah.
presentation that I'm remaining in. And I
Mm.
ignored that. I went to the chiropractor. I tried to get the doctor to flip, like everything. And he was like, nope, not budging. So I had this conversation with my midwife and my doctor at like 38 weeks. And I was like, this baby's coming very soon. I can feel it. I knew I wasn't going to go to 40 weeks. I had this feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and which it didn't really make sense because my oldest came almost 40 weeks. My second came 41 weeks. So I was kind of like just feeling off of this child. And so the
Yeah.
OB looks me dead in the face and she's like, I am so supportive of everything that you want to do, but I cannot legally deliver him in the hospital breech vaginally.
Yeah.
She was like, it's a liability. She's like, I'm not trained in it. And there was only one
Mm-hmm.
doctor on the staff who was trained in it. And he straight up was like, I will not deliver a potentially 11-pound baby vaginally breech. Like, he was like, absolutely not.
Mm.
And I was
Yeah.
like so brokenhearted because I'm just like,
Yeah.
I want to have this baby the way I want to have this baby. So the rebellious part of me was like, just stay home, just have the baby at home.
Mm.
Like, you can do this. And the midwife that I had at the time was basically like, I don't feel comfortable delivering a breech baby at home.
Mm.
Like, I don't have the training.
Right.
So I hadn't even made up my mind yet. I was still like in this limbo space of what I was going to do. And I went into labor. I labored an entire day at home because I could not decide what I wanted to do. And I finally ended up going to the hospital. It was
Mm-hmm.
like 9 p.m. and my husband had worked all day. So he was so annoyed because I hadn't told him I was in labor. And he got home. I was like, I'm in labor. He was like, are you kidding me?
He was like, I was looking forward to sitting down, maybe like popping a
Literally.
beer.
He was so annoyed with me because he was like, why are you like, why haven't you said anything all day? And I was like, because I couldn't decide what I wanted to do.
So funny. I'm curious, like,
Like
because you were
part,
so hesitant, like, was your labor, was it like ramping up? Or I feel like it would probably like keep you from progressing, like, because you were like so resistant, you
it
know?
was just very slow. Like it
Mm,
wasn't stalling. It was just very
hmm.
slow. Like I knew I was in
Yeah.
active labor, but like I started probably 3 a.m. that morning. And by
Hmm.
the time I got to the hospital at 9 p.m., they were like, yeah, you're about 7 centimeters. Like
Yeah.
we have to get you back for a C-section right now. And I
Yeah.
looked at the nurse and I said, can I not just deliver the baby? And
Mm,
she goes, not here.
mm.
And of course, my husband
Can
looks
you,
at me. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt, but
No.
maybe you can like when we can touch on this later. I don't want to like interrupt the flow of the story, but I'm
Mm-mm.
curious if you can like speak to a little bit about like what they told you the risks were, like why they didn't want to deliver the your baby breech.
Yeah. So they didn't go into many things outside of that it was a
Hmm.
liability, that it was extremely dangerous. They basically looked at me and said all the things that would terrify me, like my baby could, I'm trying to remember the wording they used. It was something along the lines of like the baby could get stuck if they didn't have someone skilled enough to help get the baby out. And I had watched like probably 2 or 3 births of like vaginal deliveries of breech babies. And so of
Hmm.
course I'm like, well, I've seen babies be delivered breech like this, but they kept harping on the fact that I had had 2 very large babies already.
Yeah.
And they're like, it's even more dangerous because of the size of your baby. And they just
Mm,
kept pushing like the risk of his life. And that was where the fear was coming
hmm.
in for me.
Yeah. And do you remember was he footling or was he like bottom first? I can't remember what that's
He
called.
was bottom first. Yeah, he was bottom
Okay.
first, which
Yeah.
is
Okay.
actually easier to
Right.
deliver
Safer.
breech. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like that was, but of course they weren't telling me that. I didn't know that. They were like,
Hmm.
it's a hard no. Like, no one's going to do it. And I
Ugh,
literally remember
gosh.
I looked at like my husband and I was like, breathing through contractions, mind you. And I looked at my husband and I'm like,
Hmm.
what would they do if I got here and the baby was just coming out? Because I was so annoyed. Because I was like, this is
Yeah.
ridiculous. Like, so they prepped me for C-section. I've never had a C-section. I'm not scared, but I'm very aware that I am not going to be super present because of how medication affects
Hmm.
me.
Mm-hmm.
So I will say, like, my doctor was a beautiful woman who was very gentle with me. And she was so amazing at like the surgery process. Like, I felt slight movements and stuff, but like, there was no part where I felt like I was being jerked around or I felt scared,
Mm.
like, nothing. And then, of course, my son comes out and yells at the top of his lungs. And they were like, you just birthed a grown man.
Oh, how many weeks was he? I meant to ask.
Oh, yeah, almost 39.
Okay, so he wasn't
Um,
even like full term.
no, I just have massive babies, like
And how much was
huge
he?
babies. And he was almost 10 pounds. And
Okay.
like all of their heads are huge. Like my kids have these giant heads. I tell my husband, I'm like, it's your fault.
Oh.
But yeah, so he, this is really interesting. So after I had him, I kept having a lot of guilt about having a C-section because I was like, I was supposed to have a home
Mm,
birth. I was supposed to do this at home.
yeah.
Like I wasn't having any issues like connecting to my baby or like it was just me. It was like I felt unfulfilled. I felt sad. And this part
Hmm.
always gives me goosebumps. So I had a dream like a week after I had him.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, I was like in the middle of the ocean and I'm like needing rescue and it's at night. Okay. And this boat comes out of nowhere and there's this beautiful blonde man on this boat. And he reaches his arm out to me and I'm like, I need help. I need help. And he's like, I know. And he reaches his arm out and I go to reach for his arm and he goes, I just want you to know that the way we come in and the way we go out don't define the experience. And he
Mm,
pulls me onto the boat. And
mm.
I was like, what? And I looked him dead in the face and I was like, this is my son.
As a
And
grown
as
man.
he's gotten older, he looks so much like this man. And my son is extremely spiritually elevated. Like he comes to me in dreams
Mm,
all the time to communicate with me. He's also autistic. He is very spiritually adept. He brings spirits in the house all the time. Like it's so funny. Um, Very deeply connected to animals. Like he's a very spiritual soul. And
oh,
so it was almost like he was trying to tell me it's okay. Like I came in
yeah,
how I came in. It doesn't define the
right.
journey.
Yeah.
And so I was just
Oh,
like,
that's
oh my
beautiful.
gosh. Yeah. And so that was my first three. And so then I thought
Mm-hmm.
that I was done having children because my dream was to have many more children, but my husband was like, this is it. We're at capacity. We didn't know that my third son was autistic yet, but it was
Mm.
just one of those things where my husband was really like, he wanted one, I wanted 10, and now we have three.
Yeah, it seems like a, kind of a happy medium.
Yeah. So I decided to be a surrogate because I like being pregnant and
Yeah,
I wanted to help someone else have a baby. So when
that's
my
amazing. You said that so casually. You were like, I decided to be a surrogate. Like, I have so many questions. Like, was your husband like, was he like, okay, that's crazy too? Or like, was he like, I get it. Like, at least like you're scratching the itch, like, and it's not another one that we have to raise. Or like,
yeah,
because I mean, that's a huge decision. Like, I mean,
I know.
you said you like being pregnant, but we were talking about, you touched on this earlier. Pregnancy and birth is not inherently dangerous, but the reality is like it is the closest that we come and there to that like that veil, and
Hmm.
there is risk with it. There can be. And so I just always think that surrogacy is just such a selfless thing to do.
Yeah, I love that question. By this point in the game, my husband knew that he was married to a very unique bird.
There's no stopping you.
And he tells me, it's so funny. He'll say, I know when you make up your mind that I'm never talking you out of it. He was like, I can
Yeah.
tell between when you are up for negotiation and when your mind is made up and I'm just tagging along for the journey.
Oh, I wish more husbands would figure that out sooner.
I know, I know. So, yeah, so my third son was like 9 months old and I
Mm,
kept feeling this spirit baby around me and it was a girl. And
mm,
she kept kind of telling me, you're the vessel. You're the vessel. And I'm just like, what does that even mean? Like, and I'm just like listening. And then I went to my OB for a postpartum appointment and we were talking about our kids and she's like, yeah, I've had four. She's like, "Good." And I was like, oh my God, you have four kids. That's so beautiful. And she goes, well, I have three, but I was a surrogate. And I said, tell me everything because
yeah.
I had obviously heard about surrogacy, but I had never actually considered doing it.
Mm,
And she was like, yeah. And she told me the whole process that she went through. And she actually had a baby for a friend. But so she told me like everything that went into it and the process and how it made her feel and how the pregnancy was and everything. And I'm just like, I always say when we know something is for us because it lights us up. It doesn't make us feel anxious, like, oh, I need to do this right now. I need to do this. It's like, oh, my soul is on fire thinking about this.
mm,
Like
mm-hmm,
that's how
mm-hmm,
it feels. And when she was talking about it, I had that feeling. And I
mm,
was like, why am I just had a baby? Like, what am I even thinking right now? And so I'm going to talk about Teresa and Sarah for a second because I have been following along with your Zen Mama since my oldest was born because they started in like
yeah,
2013. And so
yeah.
I was like watching Teresa's like pregnancy vlogs and I was reading all the articles.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like
Mm-hmm.
thick in the pregnancy world at this point because I'm like, I
Yeah.
just had a baby. Like Teresa's daughter, Poet, and my son, Conrad, are only 2 months apart. And
Oh,
so,
so cool. I love it.
yeah.
And
And
we should say
so,
also, so Teresa and Sarah, when she says Teresa and Sarah, we're talking about, for those of us who aren't daisies, like Devin and I, Teresa Palmer and Sarah Wright Olson. By the time this episode comes out, they will have also been on the podcast. But
yay!
they are two wonderful actresses and mommies who have a wonderful podcast that Devin and I love called The Mother Days. And that's how Devin and I met. Anyways,
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah, I actually just did an episode on the Mother Days. I think it's coming out in a couple of weeks. I'm not exactly sure,
I'm
so I'll
so
be on there
excited.
too. Anyway, so I was just really in that mode of like motherhood. I'm raising my children. I love being pregnant, all the things. So I started like toying around with this idea. And so I sat with it for many months. And then I think my third son was around like 9, 10 months. And I went to my husband and I was like, how would you feel if I did surrogacy? And he was like, what do you mean, like have a baby for somebody else? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, I mean, if you wanted to, he's like, I would support you. He's like, are you sure? He's like, it's really a lot on your body. And, have you looked
Yeah.
into it? But he also knows I'm a Capricorn moon, okay, with a Capricorn stellium in my chart. I'm a Pisces sun, but I'm a Capricorn moon. Anything and everything that I can know about something, I'm going to know. Yeah. So anyway, so when it comes to that, I had already done so much research and I had been looking at agencies. I had looked up how to do it like independently. I had been in Facebook groups. Like I didn't bring it to him until I was like, I know exactly what this looks like and I think I want to do it. So
Mm-hmm.
he was pretty much on board. Like he had questions, but there wasn't really a part that he was like, no way. What the heck?
Yeah.
Now my family, on the other hand, like my parents, siblings, they were all like, wait, what the what? And I'm like one of my brothers was like appalled. He was like, that is
Oh.
disgusting. I was like, what do you mean it's disgusting? He's like, you're going to have somebody else's baby? Like, that is so weird. And I was like, I mean, now they're much more open to it. They saw me go through the experience. And that's one of the most beautiful things
Mm-hmm.
about it was seeing all
Mm.
of them after I had her and like their experience of like, look how happy these people are. This is incredible.
Yeah.
What a gift. It completely
Yeah.
changed their perspective on surrogacy. So that was really cool.
That's cool. And
Yeah.
okay, so question, when you were
Mhm.
thinking about all this, did you know or have an opinion on it, and if you just wanted to be like a surrogate, like you said, a vessel earlier, or if you
Mhm.
also were open to contributing an egg?
Yep. I just wanted to be the vessel. And the
Okay.
reason being is because I had decided to be a surrogate through an agency, not for anyone that I knew personally, because I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
anyone at the time who was looking for a surrogate. And so for
Mm-hmm.
me, had it been a friend or family member, I would have been very much willing to give an egg had that been something that was needed. But because
Yeah.
of the possibility that I was going to be with someone who was from another state, another country, it was very hard for me to wrap my mind around that I have a biological child that I may not get to see in person.
Yeah.
Um, Even though I would be gifting that child to someone else, I just had at the time, I was like, I don't know if I could do it, especially because
Yeah,
I
I
had
get
three
that.
sons. Yeah, I had three sons and I knew this child was going to be a girl. I knew it.
Mm.
And so I was like, can I make, I couldn't do it. I was like, I'm not there right now.
You're like, I
So
can't give my girl away. Like,
I
yeah.
know it was like,
Yeah.
I know that sounds bad, but it wasn't just
No.
that, but
No.
and so I ended up going with an agency that was local. They were a small business agency because it was going to be less money for me. But that
Mm-hmm.
wasn't my main motivation. I wanted to help families who couldn't afford the bigger agencies. So
Right.
that was kind of like my thought behind it. I was like, yeah, I'm going to lose probably $20,000, but I'm also going to be able to support people who are like normal families who can't afford
Yeah.
$200,000 for a surrogate.
Right.
So I went with this agency. They loved me off the rip. They were like, yes, 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 all the things. Like, and they asked me, they were like, do you have preferences of who you have a baby for? Like single
Mm-hmm.
man, single woman, like heterosexual couple, gay couple, like, what are your preferences? And I was like, I'm open to any and all. I was like, I don't have a specific preference. And I was open to carrying twins. Like, so when you have a surrogacy profile like mine, you have a lot of parents who are interested because a lot of surrogates have very strict preferences and boundaries. And mine were like free for all.
Yeah. And
So
you've had 3 healthy pregnancies and deliveries and like,
yeah.
oh, how does having a C-section impact like your surrogacy profile, if you will?
Yeah. So you can have up to 3 cesarean sections before you are disqualified, because
Okay.
3 is considered the healthy number that doesn't cause significant scar tissue and damage. I personally
Hmm.
disagree. I feel like it should be more highly considered. And the reason being is because there is certain things when we have a cesarean section and then we go through the IVF process as a surrogate
Hmm.
that can make things a little more challenging because they're going in and they're looking at your uterus to make sure it's tip top shape. Well, if you have any
Hmm.
underlying scar tissue from things like endometriosis, PCOS, or fibroids, anything like that, or a cesarean section, it does make the
Hmm.
process a little more complicated. And so I do
Yeah.
think it should be a little more considered because you don't want to waste someone's time. As soon as you're
No.
accepted as a surrogate, you are going to these clinics and you're getting all the blood work. They're looking at your uterus like once a week. They're looking at your
Mm.
follicles. They're looking at everything because they have to stop your natural body production. So basically, you
Right.
take birth control, which is telling your body, I can't get pregnant. But then they implant you with a fertilized egg or eggs, and then they're giving you drugs to tell you, I need to get pregnant. So your body's doing 2 different things at the same time.
Whoa. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's very crazy. Science is wild. Let me just tell you.
Yeah. I would do
So
they give you, I had never heard that. Do they give you birth control because they don't want you to get pregnant like naturally with your spouse or
they
partner or
give
whatever?
you they give you birth control to delay or like stop your cycle
Control your
because
cycle. Okay.
right, because you don't have a cycle unless you ovulate. And if you do have a cycle
Right.
without ovulating, it's not technically a cycle. It's just like
Hmm.
extra blood that the uterus needed to get rid of.
Right.
So you cannot ovulate leading up to this process. So the birth control
Okay.
controls and regulates your cycle and it stops your ovulation. So that's
Okay.
like step one.
Got it. I'm
And
tracking.
then, like, yeah. So then you get like this calendar, and it's like, this is when you take this medicine. This is when you take this shot. This is when you this. You have a very short window of time to do your egg transfer. And then you basically wait. It's not quite 2 weeks, but you have the 2 week wait, like usual, to find out if you're pregnant or not. Um, so I'll give just a little bit of the backstory. So I got matched with a gay couple in Spain and I let spirit lead me. I was just like, you're going to give me the right profile. So
Mm.
they sent me my potential parents, which is the intended parents. So they call them IPs. And as soon as I saw their picture, I was like on my way to Disney World with my kids. And I got their picture and I showed it to my husband and I was like, these are the dads. Oh my gosh.
That's so cute.
And he was like, wow, they look great. And I'm just like,
Oh,
I was like, he's a musician, he's a lawyer. Like I'm telling him everything about them from the profile. And he's like, love it, great.
that's so cute. I love it.
It was so sweet. And then like I remember we got to Disney World and I had told them I accepted the profile. And I was walking around Disney with my kids and my husband, and I was like, maybe they're gonna bring their baby to Disney one day. And my husband's like, we just got the profile. Like, let's like get to the next steps.
You're like jumping ahead like years. You're not
Yeah,
even pregnant yet.
I know. So, well, and I also felt this child so strongly. Like I knew she was going to come in.
Hmm.
I just didn't know exactly what the process was going to look like. Well, I also want to
Yeah.
share that this all happened right during the pandemic.
Oh,
So my first transfer was scheduled for like April 2020 and
oh my God.
everything shut down. Yeah. So I didn't have the
That's
transfer.
right.
I was devastated. The parents were devastated because they had a
Mm.
surrogate before me who fell through and they had wasted like a year's worth of time and money with the surrogate.
Ugh.
And so they were like, we're never going to have this baby. They had been together like 11 years at this
Mm.
point and they had been wanting a baby for like 6 years. So
Oh.
Yeah, so that was really hard on everybody. But I just kept talking to this baby and I was like, you're going to come in when it's right for you. I feel it. Everything's going to be great. Well, the dads really, really wanted twins because they wanted to each have a baby. So the way that
Mm,
works is they have the same egg donor, and then one dad fertilizes one egg and one dad fertilizes the other egg. So they're twins, but
cool.
they're only genetically twins through the mother, which is crazy.
Cool.
Right. So we transferred twins in June of 2020, and I got pregnant. Everything looked great. Everything was going wonderful. And I was heading to my first ultrasound, and I had a blighted ovum. And I'd
Mm,
never even heard of that. I didn't know what it
mm,
was. The spirit babies had not said anything to me. I hadn't felt anything off. So I was like shocked at this point. Like, I'm just
yeah.
like, what is happening? And
Mm,
I was so devastated for the dads. Like, I just could not believe that this was happening because
mm,
I'd never even had a pregnancy loss at this point that
yeah.
had like affected me personally in this capacity. I had had a pregnancy loss, but like it wasn't in the span of like with my husband over these years. It was from like my teenage years. So anyway,
Yeah.
so I was very much confused. And so I'm like,
Mhm.
emotionally, I'm feeling the sadness for the parents. I'm feeling like what's
Yeah.
happening. So we go through the whole process of, a DNC because by the time they found out that I had a blighted ovum, I was
Mhm.
almost 10 weeks pregnant, technically.
Oh my God. And
Yeah,
can
because
you
they
tell
didn't.
everyone what a blighted ovum is?
Absolutely. So, and I actually just experienced this with a client. And so I
Mm,
was really glad that I had this knowledge
mhm.
because they weren't sure if that's what it was. And so I was like, just in case this is what it is, I want to tell you what it is and what's going to happen. So,
Yeah.
a blighted ovum is when the egg essentially implants, but there's no fetal pull. The baby doesn't
Mm,
continue to grow. So
mhm.
it is more common in pregnancies that are using fertility drugs for support because the fertility drugs are sustaining the pregnancy. So the
Mhm.
body thinks that it's pregnant. The egg has implanted, everything is continuing to grow and develop, but there's no fetal pulse. So there's no baby inside of the sac. There's no heartbeat.
Yeah.
Like it's literally like an empty sac. It is pretty rare,
Mm,
but it does happen. And so on the spiritual side, I've had people ask me, well, why does this happen? What does this mean? The thing
mhm.
is, the body and spirit work in tandem, but sometimes the body just does things that spirit has no control over.
Mm,
And so there's elements of like spirit babies trying to come through, something like that happening, and the spirit baby going, okay, well, I'm going to take the next opportunity.
mhm.
Um, and so that's what essentially happened with this pregnancy. And so I ended up having to have a DNC because of how far it was. I had never had any experience like this before.
Mm,
It was wild. And it was all during the pandemic. So when I did start and trigger warning for I'm going to talk a little bit about the pregnancy loss if that's okay.
yeah, please.
During this pandemic, you couldn't just go to the emergency room. So when I
Right.
started miscarrying and I was bleeding a lot, I was like
Mm,
passing out and my husband calls the emergency room and is like, "I need to bring my wife up there." And they're like, "You can leave her at the door." And he was like, she's passing out. Like, he's like, she's got so much blood loss. Like, I cannot just leave her at the door. And they're like,
yeah.
you can call an ambulance. And so my husband's like, do you want me to call an ambulance? And I was like, no, I don't want to go to the hospital right now. Like, I was worried about, getting my kids sick or like, it was just
Right.
all in the what's happening. Right.
Right. COVID was like, it
So
was
I ended
so
up,
unknown and scary. And yeah.
yeah, it was so, and I just felt like my body is like purging all of this. So like there's not much they can do outside of monitoring blood loss. Like that's pretty
Yeah.
much what was going to happen.
Yeah.
So at the time both of my brothers are EMTs, paramedic, firemen. And so at the time I
Mm,
called my middle brother and I was like my husband got on the phone with him. He's like, is she going to die? Like and he was like, does she have her Apple Watch on? Because we didn't have Aura rings back then.
right.
So my husband was like tracking my heart rate with my Aura, with my Apple Watch, and like, so it wasn't like I was just like willy nilly not being careful
Right.
with it. But while it was happening, I did have, like, I was going in and out of consciousness. So I was sleeping a lot. And I did end up having a dream where the spirit baby came through to me and they were like, everything's going to be okay. I'm going to come back in, like, take care of your body, like, take care of you.
Mm.
And so I told the dads, like, what was going on. And of course, they were worried about me, but they were, of course, eager to get pregnant. So they were like, we don't want to pressure you. Like, let us know when you're feeling better. And this is the part about surrogacy that can be a little tricky is sometimes once you get matched and you start working with your intended parents, agencies aren't super supportive or like present. So they're not always like checking in on you or like, hey, how are you doing? We found out this happened. Or, it's all very like, oh, we saw this happen. So billing stops because now you're not pregnant.
Very transactional.
And very transactional. And so that's my
Yeah.
one thing I would say is there are agencies that are not like that. I recently talked to an agency, I think they're called Aspen Surrogacy. Incredible,
Okay.
naturally minded, super caring about their women. And there are agencies like that. And there are situations where you go private and it's like that and it's beautiful. This experience was just really tricky because my intended parents were in Spain and it was during the pandemic. So like there was just a lot of restriction and on and on.
Wait, this
So
is like a technical question. Did they have
yeah.
to like ship their sperm? How did
Yeah.
like
So their fertility clinic was in Idaho because they picked like a
okay.
top fertility clinic. It was in Idaho. So I had to fly to Idaho for my transfers. Yeah, which was actually really cool because I had never been and it was in Boise. So it was like super cool town.
Yeah.
So I actually got like a little 3-day vacation paid because I got to like go get a transfer and then just like chill in a hotel and order room service.
Oh, I love it.
It was great. So that all happened. So they want you to wait until, and this is anytime you have a pregnancy loss, they want you to wait until HCG is 0 before you can like try to do anything else, unless you just get pregnant naturally on your own. But if you're going through like fertility treatments. So they were like, everything has to be 0. We recommend waiting at least 8 weeks. And I just kept hearing November. And so
And this
I
was
was like,
June that this happened?
it all ended up going down in July because I had the
July.
transfer
Okay.
early June. Yeah, I had the so
Okay.
I love Harry Potter. So I always
Me
remember that I had
too.
my DNC. Yeah, I had my DNC on Harry Potter's birthday. I was like going into the hospital and
Oh.
I was like, it's Harry Potter's birthday. And my husband was like, okay.
Oh, I love it so much. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was funny. So anyway, so I got everything leveled out. It was like October and they were like, great, you're back on the machine. Let's do it. So I was like, good, we're good to go. We're getting pregnant. We're having babies. Like it's locked and loaded. So I did end up successfully getting pregnant. I did not get pregnant with twins. I got pregnant with one baby. So the dads were a little disappointed just because they really wanted to, but they were so stoked to be having a baby. Healthy heartbeat, everything looked great. I did end up getting earlier ultrasounds and a little bit more monitoring in the beginning just because they missed it because I didn't get an ultrasound until like 9 weeks.
Yeah.
Because the OBs can't get you in and my fertility clinic was in Idaho and they were like, your blood work looks great. We'll just wait.
Right.
So
you've had 3 healthy pregnancies. Yeah.
Right. Yep. So I did end up going to like earlier ultrasounds. Like my very first ultrasound was like 6 weeks on the dot.
Yeah.
So I had a couple in the first trimester, which I am not a big ultrasound person. I do not love like the exposure to the fetus, the things that it can do to your body. But when you're a surrogate, the one thing I will say is your body is your body, but it is also not your own during surrogacy because you are making decisions that are best for you, but you're also making decisions for someone else's child. So there's a limit between what you can say yes and no to. And I did experience that a couple times throughout that journey. They wanted me to get the COVID shot. And I said, absolutely not. Because is this going to hurt your baby? There's not any research.
Right.
And I felt strongly that that was a no. They were not happy about that. But that was one of those things I was not budging on. But then there were things like, we want more ultrasounds. We want you to take this supplement, whatever, that I was like, okay, 100%, I will do what makes you feel better.
I can't imagine like how complex that was during to be a surrogate during COVID. Like, because there's the shot question, and then there's also just like I remember I was pregnant during COVID with my first, and I got COVID, and we didn't
Yeah.
know how it was going to affect, and so like were they like you can't leave your house or like like trying to impose any like restrictions on you like
Yeah,
you
it
know?
was interesting because I had to travel to the IVF clinic.
Yeah.
So like I could only bring one person with me. My kids were not allowed to come.
Yeah.
Um and I had to wear a mask from like sun up to sundown. Like it was
Yeah.
so uncomfortable. For the whole first trimester, they were very funny about where I went and what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And my kids were home because the pandemic had shut school down. My youngest was not even 2. My older 2 we were homeschooling, which was a nutso experience in itself, but like
Yeah.
whatever. Because I have a special education degree, but trying to homeschool your own children is like, I mean, we've all experienced it at this point. I'm homeschooling right
Yeah.
now, and we're unschooling because when we were trying to like traditionally homeschool, I was ready to pull my hair out. Um,
Yeah.
so anyway, also the new paradigm, nobody's going to need typical traditional schooling anymore. Everybody's going to be doing things by hand trade because AI is going to do
Mm.
everything.
Oh God, that's so depressing. But anyways,
I know.
that's a whole nother
So
podcast episode.
I know. So yeah, so with that, my kids were being homeschooled. I had my little one at home. And so the only thing, we were living in Peachtree City at the time. So if you're in
Hmm.
Georgia, it's the golf cart community. So the only
Yep.
thing I was really doing is getting out on the golf cart with my kids and like getting fresh air because they didn't want me going to grocery stores. Luckily,
Yeah.
they would pay for like grocery subscription and things like
Mm.
that because they're like, we'll do what we need to do to make sure you don't get sick.
Yeah.
Um, they didn't like my kids going a lot of places. Like my kids had therapy at the time. So they were like, if you can do virtual, like, and they were kind of going with the guidelines of what everybody else was going along with. But in some ways, it
Yeah.
was very isolating. And at the time, my husband worked for UPS. So he would get home from like, because they got busier during the pandemic. So he would
Right.
leave at like 7:30, 8 in the morning. He wouldn't get home till like 11 o'clock at night. And he would have to like, I would make him like change his clothes outside, like take his shoes off. And I would just be like, go
Yeah.
straight to the shower. Like it was brutal. It was so
Yeah.
hard. But that is not the typical experience. This was a
Hmm.
very unique situation. Like most surrogates, I know surrogates now, and they're like, I live my typical life. Like I don't have any issues.
Yeah.
Like, so don't think that's going to be your experience. I always recommend surrogacy if it's something your heart speaks to.
Yeah.
Her birth, I'll just kind of hit on really quick.
Yeah.
I wanted a VBAC, and
Hmm.
my doctor, I had to go through a doctor that I didn't pick or had never used because I had to use the insurance that the parents got for me.
Mm.
And so I wasn't able to use like a previous doctor that I had had because they didn't take the insurance. They were 100% no on home birth. It was like, absolutely not. So I was like, that's all
Hmm.
fine and dandy, but I'm going to choose the preferences that I want within the sphere that I can.
Hmm.
That did not happen. So I ended up with a doctor who was not a fan of VBACs
Mm.
and was very much like VBACs are extremely dangerous. La 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 la. You can have a uterine rupture. I know Claire touched on this on her episode, so I
Hmm.
won't touch on it again, but the statistics are very low.
Yeah.
But the doctor basically told my surrogacy agency, because what would happen is every appointment, they would send all the notes from the appointment to the agency, and then the agency would send them to the IPs. Because if the parents can't go to the appointment, they get all of the documents and everything.
Okay.
And so in the notes, the doctor was like, I don't recommend VBAC. It's extremely dangerous. Here's why.
Mm.
So now you've got 2 dads who are in another country who do not have a woman's body, who do not understand the
Mm.
process of birth. Like when they found out the due date, they booked their flight for the day before the due date. They were like, that's when the baby comes. I was
Oh.
like, that's not how it works, guys.
Oh, so
And
cute.
she did not. She came like 3 weeks early. So we'll talk about that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so which actually is very common with IVF pregnancies. Babies often come early with IVF pregnancies,
Hmm.
especially girls. I don't know why. That is the statistics though.
Interesting. Okay.
So, yeah, it's really interesting. So, anyway, so I pushed this doctor every week. I'm like, I can have a VBAC. I can have a natural birth. Baby's head down. Baby stayed head down. Baby was in the perfect position. And this wasn't my typical baby. This baby was not huge. I mean,
Yeah.
she was not a big baby. Like, she was going off of, like, her dads are like my size.
Oh,
So
wow. So you're like, this is gonna be
yeah,
easy
they're
peasy.
easy peasy. I'm like, guys, I can do this. I can do this. So,
Yeah.
when I did finally go into labor with her, it was almost 3 weeks early. And I
Mm,
had told them for 2 weeks, I was like, I'm telling you, this baby is coming early. I was like, whether you believe in my abilities or not, this baby's coming early. You need
yeah.
to book your flight, because it was during the pandemic, they had to get permission from the Spanish and US embassy to come and get this baby.
This is crazy.
Yeah.
There's like so
Yeah.
many hoops to jump through.
So crazy. So they didn't get permission until 3 days before I went into labor. Yeah.
So
So I
like
went
there's
into
a chance
labor.
that you could have had a baby and then like been like had to take her home with you.
No. So if you go through an agency, they have what's called
Okay.
I cannot remember the term they use, but basically they have like a surrogate parent. So it's someone that the
Oh, okay.
intended parents choose who takes the baby until they can get there. Because legally,
Okay.
the surrogate is not allowed to take the baby because they're scared of you bonding.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't even allowed to hold her after she was born until the dads held her.
Oh. Oh.
Yeah. My husband got to hold her, but I wasn't allowed to hold her. Yeah. So
That's
anyway,
crazy.
it was so crazy. So they did end up getting approved, and they were on their flight to the US when I had her. So they
Wow.
missed it, but my husband like recorded everything. He was texting them and like keeping them up to date the whole time. And
Mm,
so he was a champ, because he was like, I wouldn't want to miss this. I know how important this is. So,
sweet.
but they would not let me have a VBAC. I got there in
Mm,
labor. I was like, I'm ready. Let's do this. Baby's head down. And they were like, your file says no. The parents said no. We have to honor the parents.
yeah.
And the parents were like, we're not going against the doctor at all.
Hmm.
They were like, we
Yeah.
don't care what you say. We don't care how many babies you've had. Like, we don't
Yeah.
want anything happening to this baby. And I
I
was
get
just
that.
so frustrated. Yeah, I
Yeah.
totally understood. But I was so frustrated because I'm like, this would be like a 5-hour labor. She was like 7
Yeah.
pounds.
Yeah. You were like, I could like then like boom, like this will be done so quick.
I know. I could sneeze this baby out. So yeah, that was not my preference of how it went. But I had to be respectful of the parents and their wishes. So I
Yeah.
did end up going that route. And so I thought that was my last baby. I was like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
done. This is it. I've had all my babies. And
Hmm.
that broke my heart. I was like, I felt these other babies around me, and like I always knew I
Mm,
was going to have a daughter, and I felt her, and I was like telling my husband, and he was just like, Devyn, like give your body a rest. Like give it a
yeah.
rest. And I was like, okay, okay. So I was focusing on my kids, focusing on me, like all the things. And this was when I started really doing my spirit baby work and like really
Mm,
starting to work on this before I started working with Emily.
hmm.
And I was communicating with my daughter every single day, every single day. Like
Mm,
she was like, I'm going to come in, like, but you have to say yes. Like dad has to say yes. This has to be a mutual agreement. The contract
hmm.
has, like, it wasn't going to be a surprise. Oops. Like this was very much like a consensual, yes, this baby is coming in.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of work around it, a lot of magical stuff, a lot of all the things. And then finally, my husband, one day, we were talking about it. And I was like, I can't believe like we're not going to have a little girl after we had Maria. And he was like, I know. He's like, maybe we should try one more time. And I was like, what? I was like, yes, absolutely. And I was like, yes, we're going to have a girl.
You were like,
It's
that's all I
our
need.
daughter's
All I
coming
need.
in.
One try.
100%. I was ready to try like that second. I was like, let's go. And he's like, hold up. Whoa. He was
You're
like,
like, that's the
pump the
hottest thing you've
brakes.
ever said to me, babe. That's the hottest thing you've
Ever
ever said.
said. Yeah. And he was just like, hold on, whoa. Like I said, we could try. I didn't say today. Like, and so we ended up like kind of sitting with it for a few weeks. And then like we started trying and I was like, I felt her so close. I was like, this isn't going to take too long. It did take a couple of months, longer than like I'd ever really experienced before.
Yeah.
It felt like she was very intentional. Like she was like, I have a specific time I want to come in. I have a very specific way I want to come in. And I did end up finding out I was pregnant with her. I was like, it's her. It's our girl. Oh my gosh. Our gender reveals told us we were having a boy. I was like, no, this is a girl. I know it's a girl. My husband is devastated. He's like, this was supposed to be our girl. Like, what?
Yeah.
I am so, it was a blood test. And so I was like, I'm telling you, this is a girl. And my husband's like, it's not a girl. It's a boy. Like the blood test, it's XY. And we went 2.5 months because I didn't get any ultrasounds because I was like, I'm having a home birth. I had a home birth midwife. I was getting no ultrasounds. Like all I was doing was checking the heartbeat. So I hadn't had any ultrasounds. I had this beautiful home birth midwife. She was like, I can do VBAC. I can do breech. I can do all the things. I was like, this is happening. It's my girl.
Yes.
We're having a home birth. We're having a water birth. It's all happening. And so I ended up booking an ultrasound. It was almost 20 weeks. And I just wanted to like check on everything. And it was going to be me and my husband. We go. And they're like, this is 110% a girl. I'm like screaming.
You were like,
I'm like,
I told you people.
I am like full screen. Like my husband starts crying. He's so excited. And she was the first granddaughter. There hadn't been a girl born since me. And my brother has 3 boys. So she was the first girl. So of course everybody is like crying, so excited. And so I was like, yes, it's all happening. This is going to be my home birth baby. And so I started reading all the books. I started my doula training. I was like, this is happening. 6 months pregnant, we had a bunch of really horrific stuff happen with our boys, with school and the state of Georgia. And we're like, we're done. And we packed up our life and we moved to Colorado while I was almost 7 months pregnant with my daughter. Because of that, I couldn't bring my midwife with me, obviously. So she is like calling around in Colorado. She's like, Colorado's a great state. There's lots of home birth options, da, 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 da. It is, however, I don't want to misquote, but I think it's illegal to have a home birth in the state of Colorado VBAC after more than one C-section. I don't know for certain, but I remember having a lot of pushback with midwives and doctors. So the one thing I will say is I did not listen to my intuition because I was so determined to have a home birth that I didn't do enough research on midwives in the area. And so I ended up going with a doula and someone who said they were a midwife, but really didn't have the training that they needed to have to do a home birth VBAC delivery.
Yeah.
And a week before I went into labor, I found out she was breech.
Ugh.
And I was like, I don't have a doctor here. Like, and I called around to a couple of doctor's offices and no one would take me that late in my pregnancy. Like people were like, this is a liability.
Crazy.
I had never even heard of that. They were like, yeah, you're almost going to have a baby, you're breech. You want a VBAC? Like, no, absolutely not. I was like, what if I compromise on, blah, 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 blah. I was having such a hard time finding a care provider. And I started to like panic.
So wild. Yeah.
So then I like really sat with myself and I was like, I can do this by myself. I can do this. It's going to be fine. We still have moving boxes everywhere. We're in a completely new space. We don't know anybody, but I can do this. I got it.
I love the positivity.
And I know. Well, I kept talking to my daughter and she was just like, I want to be born at home. Like she was like really adamant about like being born at home, but she felt like everything about her was like going to be on her time. And she was my longest, hardest labor. I was in labor with her for 26 hours.
Ugh.
And it was a VBAC. She was breech. And so it took forever for her to come down. And I did go into labor on my own. I was almost 39 weeks. And the hardest part about it was, one, I was having very intense back labor, which was really hard. And VBACs
Yeah.
in general take much longer because your
Right.
body's navigating scar tissue, your body's navigating like a different terrain than it did pre-cesarean. So it just
Yeah.
takes a lot longer for like baby to get down and stuff. And so I remember the whole time I just kept telling myself, I was like, you want this spiritual experience with your daughter. I was like working in tandem with her. I just kept like being like, we can do this, like talking to her, like, and I remember like around hour like 20, I was like, I don't know if I can keep doing this because I had been awake the whole time. I was like
Oh
so depleted. And it was like, I don't know, midnight or something. And I'm just like, I was in too much pain to sleep. So it wasn't even where I could like get
God.
rests in between because it was like the contractions were coming on so consistently, but they were so painful that I needed a lot of counter pressure on my back, which is when someone like squeezes your hips and lower back. And like my husband was like using all of his strength because I would be like, squeeze harder, because it was the contractions were so big.
Yeah.
And so I just remember the whole process was like, I mean, she was like, you're going to work for me. Let me just tell you.
Yeah.
But when she did finally come out, she came out in the weirdest, she was like knee and elbow first,
So
like
not even like
bent in like
bottom
a,
first.
no, she was like in this weird sideways position. Like it was the weirdest thing. Like I ended up birthing her. And like anyone listening is probably going to be like, what in the world? I ended up birthing her in the bathroom because the only way that I could do it was like in a squat position. And so I was like
Yeah.
using the toilet for leverage.
Yeah.
And so like I had my doula and midwife, I wouldn't consider her a
Right.
midwife, but
Supposed midwife. Yeah.
other doula catch her. And like the only way I could sit down was like on the toilet because my tailbone was so sore from all of the back labor.
Yeah.
And so that was one of those things where it was a very beautiful birth experience because we worked so hard together to get her in. I did it. She was healthy. Everything was like this beautiful experience. But I was so depleted. Like
Yeah.
I was like I was bleeding after a lot. My body was struggling to heal. I was like in and out of it. Like I don't even very much remember like the last couple hours after she was born. I don't even remember birthing the placenta. Like it was one of those things where my body was like, we have nothing left to give.
Yeah.
And
Understandably.
yeah, and it was so not the vision that I had had. And I was in this new place. None of my family was around. None of my friends were around. And so it was just
Yeah.
really hard to be like, whoa, this was the thing I wanted. This was the dream. And like, I have this
Yeah.
beautiful little girl and I'm so excited and I'm looking at her and she's so perfect. But also, what the hell just happened to me?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
It was like
And
I remember having this feeling. Oh, I'm sorry.
no, you're good.
I was gonna say, I remember having this feeling with my son. Like on paper, I got the birth I wanted. I gave birth in the hospital without an epidural, like as naturally as possible in the hospital. But it was such a slog to get there that I was like, on paper, I got what I wanted, but like emotionally, it didn't feel that way, you know?
Yep. That's exactly what happened to me. And
Yeah.
that was actually the experience that opened up my spiritual abilities even deeper because I think I came extremely close to the other side on that birth experience because of how many times I thought I was going to give up. I thought I was going to, like, my body was going to give out, or I was going to just be like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And I always tell my clients, there's a old, I can't remember which mythology it is, but there's an old story and mythology of like the woman's soul leaving her body during transition and going and getting her baby and bringing the
Oh,
baby, holding their hand and bringing the baby back with them. And
that's such a beautiful
I
like
know.
image.
And I always tell my clients that because I'm like, when you're in that moment in transition, when you feel like you can't do anymore, you feel like you can't give anymore, and you're just at the brink, And it's like the surrender, which is so hard when you're like in
Mm-hmm.
pain and when you're going through this like situation where you're like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how this is going to turn out. It's the like it was the only thing that kept me going, because I just kept being like, I'm going to get this little girl and I'm going to bring
Mm-hmm.
her back with me. And that's one of the things a lot of my clients are like, I held on to that in that moment,
Yeah.
because it's also the moment that the maiden dies and the mother is born. It's the
Mm-hmm.
moment that this version of mother dies and this new version of mother is born.
Mm-hmm.
And whether you have an epidural birth, have a unmedicated in the hospital, have a cesarean, have a home birth, whatever it is, like you're still going through a transition and you're getting your baby and you're bringing them back.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the soul, because like our mother is, and I say this as someone who was a surrogate for two dads, whether or not it's your mother that births you, your mother that raises you, your mother that gives you life through their egg, whatever it is, your mother is your link.
Mm-hmm.
The mitochondrial DNA is the DNA that's passed through the generations. Nothing from the father.
Right.
The mother is the generational
Right.
DNA. Your mother is the link to the physical. So of course she has to come and
Mm-hmm.
get you. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Mm-hmm. Oh,
It's
that's
like she's
so
the strength.
beautiful. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Uh-huh. I know
That's
it helps a lot.
that's so beautiful. It's just amazing.
I really, really feel like my body was so depleted, and
Mm-hmm.
it was the reason that in my most recent pregnancy, I focused so heavily on nourishment and iron.
Mm-hmm.
Because with my daughter, I feel like I was focusing on this nourishment to an extent, but I was also going through a lot of transitions in my life. And so
Yeah.
there was a lot of stuff where I was like dropping the ball because I was like, oh, I forgot to eat lunch. I'll just drink a protein shake. Or like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not getting this beautiful, fulfilling, nourishing meal. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
making sure like my iron levels are super stored before I deliver this baby. And then I'm
Yeah.
depleted and I'm having some extra bleeding. And so instead of my body being like, we got this, we can like regenerate, my body was like, I mean, I looked like, I literally looked like death for like 2 weeks after I had my daughter, because I just was so depleted and I had blood loss and I had been just through it. And I don't say that to scare anyone. I always encourage home birth if it's something that you want. And the one thing I say is really, really know who your birth team is, because that is
Mm-hmm.
something that I knew my birth team before in Georgia and I felt very confident with. But when we moved,
Yeah.
I did not have that same experience.
Mm-hmm.
And always make sure that you're listening to your body and you're listening to your baby, because if something doesn't feel right for you, it probably isn't. And don't listen to the fear, because
Mm-hmm.
birth workers who are in this because they love it, because they want to help bring babies in, they're going to educate you, but they're also going to help you navigate through the fear. A lot of the medical system,
Right.
unfortunately, they're going to fear monger. They're going to be like, if you don't do this, your baby's going to die. If you don't do this,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to die. Because
Mm-hmm.
the birth industry is one of the number one ways they make money,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
The business of
um,
being born.
literally. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so that is one thing I'll say is like, I ended up, my husband scheduled a vasectomy and my daughter was like 9 months, I guess.
Uh-huh.
And he postponed it because we decided to go on a trip. Well, I got pregnant on the trip. So I had a surprise baby, and I found out I was pregnant. My husband was like, "What?" he was so
Another
beyond.
one.
He was so beyond. He was like, "I am appalled. Like, what do you mean we're having? Of course, we love this child. We adore him. He is an angel baby."
Yeah.
But it was just that moment of like, I wanted one kid.
And
And
now I have five.
well, and he was still a little bit like traumatized from my daughter's birth, because he had
Yeah.
never experienced a birth like that with me before. And he was really worried about me. He was like, I just had
Yeah.
never seen you like that before.
Yeah.
And he was like, you were like in your power and you were like, doing all the things, but also like you were in a lot of pain. He was like, and it was really hard for me to watch you be in pain like
Mm-hmm.
that for that long.
Yeah. That's
Um,
understandable. And then I have a quick question
Yeah.
on her birth. Did you,
Sure.
because of the way she came out, did you tear or like, was there any like,
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
I had a very slight tear that healed on its
Oh,
own.
that's
Um,
amazing.
And I think it's just because I've had so many babies. And
Mm,
also, I've always followed one, I think genetics play a role. I do. I think
hmm
genetics play a role. But I do always follow like all of the like perineal massage and like prep
mm-hmm,
leading up to birth. So, like, that's
hmm
one of the reasons I do talk about that with my clients when I'm working with a doula client. I'm like, get in there, girl. Like
Yeah.
massage, like get your husband in there, like use coconut oil or olive oil or
Hmm
whatever feels good for you oil wise. That's like don't leave out on the caring for your lady, okay? Cuz
Yeah. You
she's
won't regret
taking
it.
the hit.
She's working hard.
Girl is working hard. So, yeah, I do think that played a role in it because I did have a
Yeah.
very slight tear, but it did heal on its own, which was obviously incredible. Um, I
Yeah.
also think that what another factor was that my labor took so long. My body was literally like,
Mm,
if we are doing this, we're doing it the right way, and the fast way is not the right way.
right. It was like inch by
Yeah,
inch. Yeah.
literally. And I want to hold space because I feel like that sounds like a scary home birth VBAC story. And
Mm,
I had I had a home birth after that with my son, and it was beautiful and
mm.
fast and almost pain free and no issues. And my midwife was amazing. And he like came into the world so quickly and there were no problems. And he did come out and call like in the sack, which was really cool.
What?
Uh
Wait,
huh.
that's so cool. This is like one of my bucket lists. I was just thinking the other
Yeah.
day, like I was editing a different podcast episode and I was like, God, I forgot. Like I really want to talk to someone who's had a baby on call in call. Like I kind of also
Yes.
like have always wanted to. I think it's so cool. So I think a lot of
It
people
was
don't know
so
what this
cool.
is. It's so, and it's
Yep.
like they're supposed to be like extra kind of like magical blessed like
Uh huh.
babies, right?
Highly
Yeah. Oh, like
psychic.
of course you had an
Highly
on-call
psychic.
baby. In-call baby. I love it.
Yeah. Oh, and he is so Plutonian. Like he has Pluto on his ascendant, which I don't love, but he has Pluto on his ascendant. Like he literally came like, and it's so funny because I always tell everyone all my kids are witches, but my daughter woke up like 10 minutes before he came out and just started
Whoa.
screaming. And she never did that at the time. Like she was a solid sleeper.
Mm.
And it was funny because whenever I have a baby, we get all of our kids to either write down a number or pick a number that they think is when the baby's going to come. And
hmm
my daughter was not even 2. Like, but we
Yeah.
put all the numbers out and she grabbed 13 and my son was born on the 13th.
Wild.
Yeah.
Wild. Oh my
And
gosh. Okay,
I
so
don't believe in coincidences. So,
yeah. Yeah. Oh my God, that's so cool. Okay, so what was it like leading up to his birth? Like you knew you wanted to have another
yeah.
home birth.
Oh yeah. My husband was a little nervous. I did go with an OBGYN until 30 weeks.
Okay.
Um, but I also had a midwife. So I did the
hmm
same sort of thing I did with my third son. And I basically
hmm
was working with my midwife in tandem with my OB. And I
hmm
was very clear with my OB from the beginning. I was like, I want a home birth. I don't want to do all these ultrasounds. I don't want to do all these tests. They weren't super happy about it, but
hmm
they also, here's the thing that a lot of people don't realize. You are allowed to say no to everything. You are allowed to advocate for yourself. They can tell you all day, you have to do this, blah, 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 blah. You do not have to do anything.
mm
So a lot of people don't realize that. And yes, your doctor can
Yeah.
turn you away if you refuse something, but that's their personal preference. Like it's not
hmm
because legally you have to do it. So I just want to say
Right.
that because I tell all my clients that. They're like, what do you mean I don't have to get the glucose test? I'm like, you don't have to.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you're
So yeah,
accepting like, yeah, you're accepting like you know, I guess
consequence.
what's the consequence? Yeah, but you don't have to do
Yeah.
any of that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I got this from the Born Free method. It's called radical acceptance of our actions.
Mm, mm,
So it's like I'm radically accepting the consequences of my actions, but I'm also able to make my decisions confidently and intuitively knowing what is right for me and my baby without someone's fear
hmm
making me fearful of my choices.
hmm Yeah.
So yeah, so with my youngest son, I was like, you know what? I'm listening to this kid. He was like, I'm being born at home. It's going to be quick. You're not even going to make it to the hospital. And he was
Mm.
like, just go ahead and do whatever you think you're going to do. But at the end of the
Yeah.
day, this is what it's going to be. So I found this midwife who I was so aligned with. She was trained in breech, VBAC. She had the stuff that you need if like you have bleeding. She had everything. I felt super safe with her. I was my own doula. I didn't get a doula this time because I
Mm.
had the doula training. So I was like, I'm my doula.
Mm-hmm.
I've got this. And I probably around 30 weeks started prepping for my home birth just because I was like, I'm ready when this baby's ready, but I'm not in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so at peace with all of my choices with this pregnancy. And that was what was so profound to me was this was my first pregnancy where every single decision I had made, I felt complete peace around it because it was
Mm.
like, I've done all the other things. Okay. I've done it all. And I'm like, I am doing the thing that feels the best, feels the easiest, feels the most aligned. And I have no fear.
Mm.
And I kept thinking back to my daughter's birth and I was like, I can do hard, hard, hard things. Like, I got this.
Yeah.
So, and I really focused that entire pregnancy on nourishment and my iron levels being really good because of like my history with like some of the blood stuff that I had had.
Mm.
And really just working in tandem with my baby through spirit deeper than I had with any of my other kids, just really being present to this child and being like, tuning out all the other noise, being like, you know
Mm-hmm.
what? Like everything else doesn't matter. Like if something feels good, I'm doing it. If something doesn't feel good, I'm not doing it. And I went with that the whole time. And he ended up coming like not even 4 days before his due date. I went into labor naturally. I was in labor for not even 4 hours. He
What?
shot out like a bottle rocket. I was like, I tried to catch him and he was in the sack. And
Oh,
he slipped through my hands like a jellyfish. It was like, whoop. I was like, oh my gosh. Luckily I was in like the birth pool.
I was gonna say, were
Um,
you in water? Yeah. Oh my
well, and
God.
I was squatting, so I
Uh-huh.
wasn't in the water all the way. So I
Okay.
saw him come out in the sack and then he goes into the water. And then when I picked him up, it had busted from like going into the water. But yeah, he
That
came
is
out. It was
so
crazy.
cool.
I know.
Oh
It
my
was like
gosh.
birthing a
I
jellyfish.
and I guess we should say for people too who don't know, and caul means you're born in your amniotic sac, like with the fluid and everything
Mm-hmm.
intact, like a little, like they
Yeah.
used to call them like mermaid babies, right?
It was crazy. I was like,
That's so
and I
cool.
remember after the like initial shock of like, I just had the fastest delivery I've ever had.
Yeah.
It was like one push. I looked at my husband and I was like, that means he's highly psychic.
Yes. Oh my God. Do you think it was less painful? Because like if you're pushing the baby out
Yes.
with all that like extra padding, you know?
Yes. It, that
Mm.
was, I couldn't even believe that I was transitioning because it was a third of what I felt with my daughter. I was like,
Crazy.
the baby's coming right now. The baby's coming right now. And my husband's like, what? And I'm like, the baby's coming right now. And like, I could not believe he was coming out that fast. I thought I had like 2 more hours where I was at like pain level wise. It
That's
was
wild.
wild. And yeah, it was like the craziest thing I've ever seen. I've never experienced anything like that. It was really cool. And then, I mean, I got to get just like, just like with my daughter, I got to get like tucked in my bed.
Yeah.
And the one thing I did differently with my last baby is I really focused on postpartum support. So I hired a postpartum
Mm.
doula
Hmm.
because I had 4 other children at this point and we were living
Yeah.
away from all of our family. And I was
Hmm.
like, I need help. Like, I need someone to come and make sure my husband is able to navigate all the stuff with the kids and not have to worry about like laundry, dishes, meals,
Right.
am I okay? And so I ended up saving up my whole pregnancy to have someone who could come help me
Mm.
for like 3 weeks after the baby was born. And it wasn't every day, but it was like enough
Yeah.
to where I had someone that I was like, oh, somebody's here to like help take some of this burden off of me. And
Yeah.
one of the reasons I was able to do that is because I did end up having a home birth. So it was
Mm.
cheaper.
Oh. And so
Yeah.
wait, you said you did have a midwife or you didn't have a midwife for this one?
I did have a midwife. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
she was incredible. She was very aligned with everything I wanted and everything that was
Yeah.
happening. And she actually missed his birth by 30 minutes. So my husband and I delivered him. Yeah.
Oh my
So
gosh.
she got there right after he was born. And because I thought I had more time. So it was my fault. Like
Yeah.
I think I have like another hour or two. And so she got there. My husband called her and he was like, the baby came out and she was like, okay, this is what you do. She was so calm. Like she was like, put me on
Mm,
speakerphone. She was like walking him through everything. And luckily it wasn't his first baby. So he was like pretty
yeah.
calm. But like, so he picked him up, he got him all situated, he clamped his
Oh,
umbilical cord so that it wouldn't, so like he kept it attached, but it was like a clamp.
right.
And
Yeah.
there was like all these different things that like she was telling him to do. And I'm just like, I'm still in complete shock that I just delivered a baby that fast. Like I was just like,
Right.
he's out.
Oh my God, that's wild. You deserved that one, girl. You deserved that
I
after
know.
all the different births, all those big babies, C-section, like VBAC with that crazy
I
position.
know.
Oh my God, you deserve that
I
like
know.
dream birth.
It was so
Oh,
magical. I was like, that was the fastest. I knew people had quick births like that, but I
hmm
had never experienced
yeah,
that level. I would say the closest was my second son. And I mean, even his was like pushing 5 hours, I think, or something like that. But
right. Yeah.
yeah, it was wild. It was a really cool experience. And I mean, that's a lot for people to digest. I have a lot of different experiences, but what I will say that I took from everything that really helps me with my own clients and what I incorporate into my doula work and my spiritual work is a lot of people decide to have a baby and it's like the physical piece. They just like we're going to try to get pregnant, we're going to have a baby. And the spiritual part is kind of missing.
Mm,
And I always am telling clients I'm like working in tandem with the spiritual side is going to help so much from preconception all the way through postpartum because not only is it going to help you like honor yourself and honor your own body, but you're able to honor your baby. And it's like when you're able to work in tandem with your baby and advocate for the things that you want, but also what you feel is true and aligned for baby, it does
hmm
help you to have experiences that feel a lot like you're saying, like, I had the dream birth, but I didn't feel like I had the dream birth. And it's like
Right.
that happens so often because we're not
hmm
really listening or we're not really working like with everything that's going on around us, or maybe we feel something and we're going against it, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
yeah, that's been like my biggest takeaway from all of it, besides the fact that like I have five beautiful children and a sixth beautiful surrogate baby and like so much like knowledge to help other women, which is great. Um, I could hands down deliver a baby right now. Like no
Like your own,
problem.
yeah, like by yourself. Yeah.
uh,
Oh, I try.
oh
I
yeah, like
believe you. Yeah.
anybody's. Yeah. I'm telling you, I could walk right in and be like, come on, I got you.
I know. I know. Well, maybe, maybe if I have that little girl. Oh my
She's there.
gosh. Well, I mean, I could talk to you for another 2 hours, but I know we're coming up on about 2 hours
Yeah.
of time. So I guess I have to let you go. But before I do, I always close out my episodes by asking my guests to describe birth in 3 words, like whatever comes to mind. I know
Ooh.
that's asking you to condense a lot into 3 very small words, but whatever comes to mind for you.
Okay. Powerful, uh, profound, and
Mm.
healing.
Mm,
Yeah,
that's so
I
beautiful.
think birth is a way that women often finally step into their power. It's like
Yeah.
they finally give themselves permission. I don't know.
Mm, I agree. Oh, well, thank you from the bottom of my heart. This was so
Yeah.
beautiful and wonderful and magical and just so special. So thank you for sharing all of your experiences with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me and letting me just run my mouth about birth.
Anytime. That's what I'm here for. Oh, all right. Well, you've been listening to the Arrivals podcast. Until next time.